Just time for a quick recap of the week, and we begin with the Pope. The only person on Earth who can pull off a white cape, Gwyneth. He's the only one. You look like a photo negative of Darth Vader. Anyway, the Pope was in the United States this week, speaking before Congress, visiting the UN, riding through Central Park, going to Philly for no clear reason, and encountering adoring crowds everywhere.
Thousands greeted Pope Francis as he arrived in New York yesterday afternoon, lining the roadways through Manhattan, waving flags and banners, raising their cell phones for a picture.
Yes, everywhere he went, it seems people in America wanted to show the Pope their new iPhones. Look, Holy Father! It's the iPhone 6S! I've got it! It comes in rose gold and it has an A9 chip. The iPhone 6 only had an A8 chip, Your Holiness. Please, touch my phone so the battery may have everlasting life. Please. This was a truly historic trip for the Pope, not least because he was directly responsible for a miracle. Just watch how his arrival was reported on MSNBC.
And good day, I'm Brian Williams at MSNBC headquarters here in New York.
Holy shit, he brought Brian Williams back from the dead! Oh my, it's a miracle! Although, you know what? I will say, hearing Brian Williams report something now is like reading about it in the New Testament. I believe a man named Pope Francis exists, but a lot of the details were probably embellished. And for a man who has been off the air for so long, he spent a long time obsessing over one particular detail.
The magic of that face and that smile and his touch, his sense of touch, the power of his touch, the yearning to touch him, this very tactile Pope. Her lips said, "I love you," when she met the Pope. So tactile.
I think Brian Williams wants to pet the Pope. I think he does. There is no doubt the Pope seems to inspire strange and powerful reactions wherever he goes, but the strangest one this week may have come from Congressman Bob Brady.
The Democrat watched as the Pope addressed the joint session of Congress Thursday and then proceeded to take his unfinished glass of water once the pontiff left the chamber. He took a sip before carrying the glass back to his office. He plans on blessing his grandchildren with the rest of the water.
He drank the Pope's water. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm pretty sure that is not part of the Catholic faith. For the record, that is not holy water that you're slurping down and pouring over your grandchildren. It is the backwash from an old Argentinian man. That is what you have there. That is what you have. Let's move on. Let's move on to the United Kingdom, Europe's America. All this week, the UK has been captivated by revelations in a new unauthorised biography of Prime Minister David Cameron. And if you're thinking, what about David Cameron could possibly be captivating? Well, just wait.
There are allegations the young David Cameron smoked cannabis at Oxford University, and even that he took part in a bizarre initiation ceremony for a dining club involving a pig.
Oh. Bizarre is a kind way of describing it, because the actual allegation is that a dead pig's head was resting in the lap of a dining club member, and then, and I quote, the future PM inserted a private part of his anatomy into the animal's mouth. Yes, this book actually contains a claim that David Cameron, Prime Minister of the UK, once put his dick in a dead pig's mouth. And look, this is just the word of a single source published in an unauthorised biography. We do not know if this is true, but please let it be true. Because a Prime Minister receiving oral copulation from a dead pig hits the perfect sweet spot between one of the most horrific things ever and one of the most amazing things ever. And again, this is based on a single source, and even the co-author's rationale for including it is a little thin.
We did think about whether we should put it in or not, and in the end, you know, it made us smile.
I have to say, we thought about whether to put it in or not, but in the end, it made us smile. Really sounds like something David Cameron would say after sticking his dick in a dead pig. If he did. Which he definitely did. I honestly don't want to look into this story too closely in case it falls apart, but to ignore it, simply because it might not be true, is to look a gift horse in the mouth. A mouth tenderly wrapped around the thrusting penis of British Prime Minister David Cameron. And it's made even better by the fact that it's almost impossible to discuss this story on television, even though many people have very clearly wanted to.
The lurid allegations that are made in this book, and we can't explicitly talk about them, obviously, because of the time of day.
The pig and what did or didn't happen. And now they've turned...
Enough said, I think, don't we?
Well, I could say a lot more on that.
Enough said.
Do you anticipate many leaving to join the Lib Dems?
Well, I think, you know, you've also got this issue of the Prime Minister putting his cock in a dead pig's mouth. I mean, how is that
OK, Dan, do you know what, mate? Right, one, it's an allegation. Two, your choice of language in referring to that, I think, far goes beyond what is permitted at this time of the day.
OK, but in that caller's defence, putting his cock in a dead pig's mouth probably is the politest possible way to say it. Consider the alternatives. David Cameron was sucked and fucked by a Christmas ham. Is that better? Is that better? David Cameron received an unenthusiastic blowy from 1/3 of a BLT. Do you prefer that? You tell me a delicate way to put this. I'm not kidding. Go on Twitter right now and tell the British media a more delicate way to put it using the hashtag respectful interspecies facefuck. Do it. Have it. Have at it, internet. And finally, let's move on to cars. The smartest characters in the Fast and Furious movies. This week, German automaker Volkswagen found itself in the middle of a scandal of potentially criminal proportions.
Volkswagen is bracing for billions in fines, possible criminal charges for its executives, as the company apologizes for rigging 11 million cars to help it beat emissions tests.
Certain diesel models were designed with sophisticated software that used information including the position of the steering wheel and vehicle speed to determine the car was undergoing emissions testing. Under that circumstance, the engine would reduce toxic emissions. But the car was rigged to bypass that when it was being driven. Emissions increased 10 to 40 times above acceptable EPA levels.
Wow. 10 to 40 times greater than the EPA allows. That is the worst thing Volkswagen has ever done. Is something you might say if you'd never heard of World War II. But maybe the surest sign of how much trouble Volkswagen is in is that people at the very top have stepped down. The CEO resigned on Wednesday after scrambling to do damage control, saying he was endlessly sorry, which sounded great until it turned out he was only 10% sorry but had rigged his mouth to artificially inflate his sorriness. And meanwhile, Volkswagen's US chief had an apology of his own.
Let's be clear about this. Our company was dishonest. And in my German words, we have totally screwed up.
Yeah, but totally screwed up are not German words. And the German language has many beautiful phrases to describe situations just like this, such as Geschäftslügentraurigkeit, which means roughly the sadness that comes from business-related lies. Or Benzinwolkenwartebeschämung, which translates as shaming one's father involving clouds of gasoline. It's a beautiful language, it just sails off the tongue. And by the way, while that man's apology may have sounded sincere, it's worth noting he was speaking at an official launch party for the 2016 Volkswagen Passat, meaning that shortly after saying sorry, he said this.
Thank you very much for coming. Enjoy the evening. Up next is Lenny Kravitz.
Okay. Ending your apology with "up next, Lenny Kravitz" does not scream sober contrition. It screams, we asked Bon Jovi and he said no. Volkswagen's brand has been badly damaged. And frankly, their new ad campaign is not exactly helping.
Guten Tag. We at Volkswagen would like to apologize for deceiving you with our vehicles, which is why the 2015 Jetta now comes fully loaded with new, not at all fraudulent features, such as golden brakes, the ability to feel human emotions, and a stylish interior made of 100% raven speaks and pterodactyl skin. Plus, in a brand new feature, if you drive a Jetta off the side of the Golden Gate Bridge, you will not die. That's a Volkswagen guarantee. And if it's speed you're looking for, the 2015 Jetta contains a powerful 2.0-liter TDI clean diesel engine that will suck your dick. You've heard me right. the Jeddah will bring your engorged genitals to a shattering climax. Also, and we really mean it this time, the Jeddah is very good for the environment. And even if it isn't, remember, it sucks your dick. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Lenny Kravitz. Volkswagen. Hitler trusted us. Why won't you?
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns Europe. You know, that thing Belgium is in. If you've watched the news at all lately, you cannot have missed what has been happening there.
Europe's migrant crisis is getting worse by the day.
A migrant crisis spiraling out of control.
Hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers are risking everything.
A human wave washing over Europe's southern shores.
Hundreds of thousands of migrants have streamed into Europe, the largest influx there since the end of World War II.
Wow, the largest since the end of World War II. And remember, millions of people back then were searching both for a better life and for the booth where it was rumoured you could slap dead Hitler. And look, the scale of this story can be hard to get your head around. Hundreds of thousands of people are on the move just within Europe, and another 4 million are being hosted in Turkey, Lebanon and Jordan. And when numbers get that high, they can be hard to comprehend. It's like when someone tells you the size of the audience of NCIS New Orleans. 17 million people? How's that even possible? How many Navy-based crimes could there possibly be in New Orleans? This doesn't make any sense. And when you are dealing with a mass of people that large, you really want to be a little careful with how you describe them. Unfortunately, David Cameron, noted alleged swine fellatio enthusiast, recently referred to a swarm of people coming across the Mediterranean. And that language matters, because a swarm of anything sounds terrifying, no matter what it is. If I hear there are a lot of kittens coming my way, I'm going to be delighted. But if I hear there is a swarm of kittens approaching, I'm grabbing a shotgun and I'm getting to high ground, because I'm not going to let those furry fuckers take me alive. And here in the US, some in the media have chosen to reduce the migrant population to one simple stereotype.
A new video surfaces online showing why some are worried Europe is opening its doors to potential terrorists. Those are reportedly Muslim refugees on a train in Europe chanting Allah Akbar or God is great. Now, to be clear, we're not saying that any of those people are terrorists or in any way affiliated with a terror group, but it does highlight just how many of these refugees who are fleeing violence in Iraq and Syria are Muslim.
Okay. First, you don't get to claim that you're not calling those people terrorists when your lower third says terrorists inbound, ? If you are really not saying they're terrorists, maybe change that to something more accurate, like people take train. Or some wear hats, others less so. And second, describing that as a new video that sheds light on the migrant crisis is a little misleading, because in researching this story, we found a version of that same video uploaded onto YouTube back in 2010, well before this migrant crisis even began. And if you are going to use misleading old footage to try and make people frightened of Muslims, why stop there? Just go the whole way and use a clip from True Lies.
Now, to be clear, we're not saying that any of those people are terrorists or in any way affiliated with a terror group, but it does highlight just how many of these refugees who are fleeing violence in Iraq and Syria are Muslim.
That's only about 10% more racist than what you did. So, look, let's just take a step back, because for the record, these people are coming from many different countries and fleeing everything from civil war to economic stagnation. And while each story is unique, many of them are heartbreaking.
Nojin is 16 and from Kobane in Syria. Disabled from birth, she cannot walk, and made the dangerous crossing from Turkey last week.
I've been trying many things for the first time during this journey, like a train and a ship. So I just enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah.
You're the first person I've met who said that. But to understand why, you must know the world she escaped from.
Imagine you're 16 and you're always afraid to be dead at any minute.
What is your dream?
I have to be an astronaut, to go out and see and find an alien. Yes. So I want to meet the Queen. Yes.
Oh, I think that girl absolutely deserves to meet an alien and the Queen. And also, if she has time, a real human with feelings. But unfortunately for Najine, and so many like her, Europe has yet to create an effective system to process this influx of people. Every country has a different application process, and some are totally overwhelmed and underfunded. We actually got our hands on a couple of registration forms that were given to refugees upon arrival. This one was handed to a Syrian asylum seeker arriving in Greece on September the 5th. It tells him to return for registration on December the 21st. And that could be a tricky 3-month wait, because he's not allowed to work in that time. And yet that is nothing compared to this form given to an Iraqi refugee in Turkey, telling him to come back on June 15th of 2017, which sounds bad before you notice the pink sticky note added at the bottom clarifying that his actual date will be February 19th, 2020. And that is ridiculous. These people can't go 5 years without working. They're refugees, not Renee Zellweger. And facing that kind of limbo, it's no wonder refugees want to try to push deeper into Europe. And many of them are heading for one surprising country in particular that seems to actually want them.
They keep coming, thousands every day at the main train station in Munich, often greeted by applauding locals or welcoming volunteers. It's no wonder that Germany is the preferred destination for so many refugees.
That's right. Amazingly, one of the warmest welcomes on offer to immigrants comes from Germany. A country whose idea of a bedtime story is 2 children being left to die in the forest before being nearly cooked and eaten and then murdering an old woman. Sleep well. Unfortunately, many politicians in other countries than Germany have been actively hostile to anyone even considering settling within their borders.
No way. You will not make the Netherlands home.
Please don't come. It's risky to come. We can't guarantee that you will be accepted here.
The Danish government has published these ads in a number of Lebanese newspapers. The text is obviously written in Arabic, and it's telling migrants, don't come to Denmark, highlighting the tough regulations and constraints that await them there.
That's right. Denmark is so averse to taking people in, it's basically placing intentionally missed connections ads in other countries. Me, Danish government official. You, person in a Lebanese refugee camp. From the moment I saw you, I knew there was nothing between us and it could never work. Perfect, send. But even Denmark's approach seems friendly, next to the video apparently produced by the mayor of Asylum in Hungary, showing exactly how he and his police forces would prevent migrants from coming to his town.
Magyarország rossz választás. Ásodhalom pedig a legrosszabb.
Okay. A few things there. First, you can add as much scary music as you want. There is nothing imposing about one van driving alone on a country road. The only message that is sending to migrants is, make sure you wait for that one van to pass by. And second of all, Mr. Mayor, you do realise that border police and nightclub bouncers are not the same thing, right? You look like you're about to throw someone out of Hungary because they didn't bring enough hot girls with them. And that mayor is no outlier. Hungary has been responsible for some of the ugliest mistreatment of refugees in Europe.
Disturbing cell phone video appears to show migrants at the main refugee camp here being fed like a herd of caged animals in a holding pen.
It's a shocking video that has garnered attention from around the world. As waves of desperate migrants sprint from a holding camp in Hungary, a camerawoman appears to trip a man running with his child in his arms. The woman also kicks other migrants as they run, including a young girl. Now the camerawoman is out of a job.
Oh, I'm sorry, she lost her job? That's absolutely terrible. But don't worry, I'm sure she can find a new one on actualmonster.com. To be fair, she later apologised, saying, I'm not a heartless, racist, children-kicking camerawoman. which I can only presume means she's a loving, accepting, children-kicking camera woman, because the children-kicking part is not really up for debate anymore. And even those countries who are offering to take refugees are sometimes making those offers in the most insultingly selective way.
The Slovakians saying that they're only going to give asylum to Christians. They don't want Muslims, migrants coming into the country, Muslim asylum seekers, not least because they haven't got any mosques.
Oh, I'm sorry, Slovakia. You can't take Muslims in because you don't have any mosques. You do know you can build those, right? Mosques don't naturally occur in the wild due to erosion or particularly devout beavers. Muslims can live anywhere that other humans can live. Muslims are not like dolphins trying to resettle in Scottsdale, Arizona. And when refugees are not being excluded on the basis of religion, they're being accused of being lazy freeloaders. Just listen to one Polish MEP address the European Parliament.
If we abolished all benefits, then people who don't want to work and want to live from benefits wouldn't come to Poland and the rest of Europe. People who want to work are precious, however they are sent back, and we accept only those who don't want to work. It's ridiculous policy leading to invasion of human trash. Let us be clear, human trash, human garbage that doesn't want to work.
Human garbage? Those are some pretty strong words coming from the Polish Six Flags guy. And what he said is not just offensive, it's also wrong. Research has shown that while there is some small cost in the short term, eventually an influx of lower-wage immigrants into a community tends to raise wages for everyone else. And a working paper published last year by 4 economists found that immigration benefited local populations in 19 of the 20 industrialised countries they studied. And think about that. Adding immigrants makes things better 19 times out of 20. That's a success rate matched only by Bacon and Paul Rudd. And incidentally, it's just a little hard to hear these migrants and refugees being called lazy, considering how hard many of them have worked to reach Europe in the first place. You really want to talk about lazy migrants? I'm a lazy migrant. I left a country by airplane, and the only things I was escaping were fog, public indifference, and an almost certain future as the turtle of Prince Harry's entourage. I didn't want to be Royal Turtle. I didn't want to be Royal Turtle. And the maddening thing here is Europe doesn't even need to do this for good reasons. It can do it for selfish ones, because as a continent, it is in dire need of new citizens.
According to the UN, the average woman needs to have 2.1 children to maintain the population of a developed country. But in the European Union, every single country is below that 2.1 level. By 2050, some countries like Greece, Portugal, and Germany will see their populations drop by double-digit percentages, according to Pew.
That's true. If Europe doesn't open its doors to more migrants, this is not the changing face of Europe they should be frightened of. This is. This one right here. And look, not every single asylum seeker is going to be the perfect economic wellspring. But instead of worrying about the hypothetical downside of letting these migrants in, countries should be more worried about the actual downside of turning them away, if for no other reason that you might miss out on someone like Najeen, who seems like she would improve any country that would have her. Just listen to how she taught herself English.
How did you learn to speak such good English?
At home with my favorite TV show.
What's that?
It's Days of Our Lives with the Sammy and EJ struggle. Yeah, I love them both.
How can you not want this girl in your country? She loves Days of Our Lives. She loves it. She loves Days of Our Lives. And specifically, she loves EJ and Sammy. In fact, even after weeks of total hell, mortal danger and inhumane treatment, Najeen's biggest complaint is that the show actually killed off EJ, who was her favourite character. And frankly, she's right to be upset. EJ and Sammy were magic together. I mean, yes, you could argue that EJ basically blackmailed Sammy into marriage and then impregnated her and then worked for Sammy's arch-nemesis, Nicole Walker, who he then also impregnated, and then he kidnapped Sammy's baby and made her think it was dead, so Sammy shot him in the head. But you know what? That's the kind of thing couples do. And besides, they got through all that. And yes, sure, EJ did then cheat on Sammy before their wedding with that trollop Abigail Devereaux. But he still didn't deserve to die from yet another gunshot wound, even though, yes, it was at best reckless for him to have a secret meeting with hillbilly drug lord Clyde Weston in the middle of the fucking woods. You idiot, EJ, how could you die? You and Sammy were so close to eternal happiness. Why, EJ? Why? Why, EJ? My point is, Najine has been through enough. And any country would be lucky to have her. And I know lots of people still have fears. Fears that migrants will bankrupt social systems, which many studies show does not happen. Fears that migrants might have an ISIS member lurking among them, which there has been no credible example of. And no one is saying this is easy, but the fact it's so hard is not a reason to do less, it's a reason to do more. From countries expediting their application process to properly funding the UN High Commission for Refugees, whose fund for responding to Syrian refugees in neighbouring countries is less than half of where it needs to be, to simply, and I know this sounds crazy, just not kicking them when they're moving around. And it's a crazy idea, just rein your leg in. And there is actually one final thing that we thought we could do, and it is admittedly very small, and it is just for one refugee. But for Najine, who was so justifiably saddened by the death of EJ from Days of Our Lives, we made some calls, and we have a surprise that is literally just for you.
No way. No, it's not.
It's me.
It can't be.
Hey, Trouble.
It's you! It's you! Oh, how is that possible? How?
Not even my father would let me die in a pile of dirt. My sister made sure that I survived the morgue, and then she flew me to Germany where my father's witch doctors did their work. Physically, I've been well for months, but it took me a long time to be able to get away from him and his people after my resurrection.
Oh, I just can't imagine how horrible this was for you.
It was nothing. Coming back from the dead, that's not hard. You know what's hard? Getting from Syria to Germany.
Oh, have you seen what those migrants are going through?
It's insane. $1,000 to bribe your way onto a rubber dinghy, and that's how you get across the Mediterranean?
And if you make it to the border of Turkey, they'll hand you a form offering you an appointment 5 years from now.
And then, if you're lucky, you get to navigate a barrage of bigotry and hatred from some asshole mayors in Hungary.
It's horrible. Someone tripping a child. If someone did that to my child.
Yeah. You'd slap him twice.
Oh.
You know, there are some amazing people coming through that border. I read about this incredible 16-year-old girl from Kobani called Najine Mustafa.
Najine Mustafa?
Yes, Najine Mustafa.
She's our kind of people?
She's our kind of people. Maybe we'll get to meet her one day.
Maybe. But right now, you are not going anywhere, mister.
Look, if we can raise EJ Demera from the dead, surely anything is possible. That's our show. Our thanks to EJ and Sammy. We'll see you next week. Good night.